Hello everyone, this is Shannon for Waffle Flower Crafts. Today we're going to create a really fun interactive birthday card that has a pop-up hidden behind a present to reveal an explosion of balloons and party hats. We're going to start today's project with the box card die. I'm going to use this die to create the present. I'm pulling out the main die in this set and I'm going to cut this box out of 110-pound teal cardstock. The die creates a score line for the lid as well as some embossed lines on the lip, and I wanted those embossed lines to be on the front of the lid as well, so I cut the lid out again, and I did get a little bit of extra. I'll just trim that off with the scissors. I just used the same die that I used earlier, and actually the same piece of cardstock, just use the last little scrap of it here to cut this lid out, and once I trimmed that little extra piece off, I have a nice lid that fits perfectly on top of that box, and I do now have the embossed lines on both the front of the box and the inside of the box. And I'll just use some liquid glue here to glue the two together, and that will complete my box. Now I'm going to move on to creating the spiral pop-up mechanism. So I have a circle here. This circle die is from the Nesting Circles Die 1 set, and I went through the set and I found the circle that fit inside that lid when it was closed, and I have a little piece of acetate here, and I'm going to hold the circle down and just trace around it. I could die cut it, but the die has these beautiful little stitched details, and I just didn't want to put those stitch markings on the acetate. I want the acetate to be as invisible as possible. So after I traced around it with a permanent marker, I just grabbed a pair of scissors here and I'm cutting around that trace line, cutting kind of just beyond it so all of the marker lines stay on the piece that I'm throwing away. So now I have this perfect circle piece of acetate, and now from this circle I'm going to make my spiral. I'm just going to cut into the circle just about 1/4 of an inch. I did it slightly at an angle, and then I'm going to run my blade along the acetate, leaving 1/4 inch from my scissor blade to the edge of the acetate, and I just continue to work my way around, gently turning the circle as I cut, and as I work my way around I'm getting closer and closer to the center, and once I get to the very center, that's where I'll stop. This is actually very easy to do, and I love that the acetate, because it's clear, it really hides any imperfections if your circle is not perfectly round when you cut it. So I just finished here. As I get the light shining on it, you can kind of see my spiral, and as I pull it apart, you can really see that great spiral popping mechanism. Now I'm going to move on to stamping my sentiment. So I have the We Heard stamp set here. All my images and sentiment are from this set. I took the We Heard It's Your Birthday sentiment and cut it in half, and then also cut the stamp between the Your and Your Birthday. And I have in my MISTI here Your and Your Birthday already mounted. I'm going to ink it up with some black ink and then stamp it on the inside of my lid. Remember, this lid folds down, so this is actually kind of the inside of the box. Now that my sentiment is stamped, I can now adhere my pop-up mechanism inside my box. So I'm just centering it here, making sure that when I close the lid that the acetate is not visible, and then I'm going to add a little dab of glue right at the very beginning of my spiral where I first started cutting. And then I will fold the lid over. Now here's actually where I make a mistake. So I fold the lid over, and that's when I realize that I actually have the end of the acetate kind of in the wrong spot. I really want the end of the acetate to be at a point that's going to really open up the widest, which is the corner here of the lid. If I can stretch that spiral more, I get a better kind of pop-up motion, and that corner of the lid will stretch that spiral more. So I just rotated it, add a little bit more glue, use a little bit of tape to kind of hold that acetate in place, and then fold the lid over, and I'm letting it dry with some weight on top. It's actually one of the platforms for my die cutting machine. Once it's dried, I will remove the tape, gently remove it also from the acetate itself. I just needed that little tape to kind of hold it in place because that acetate was kind of slipping and sliding around. And once I remove that, I have half of my acetate glued. Now I need to glue down the other half. The other half is actually just the end point of my spiral. So I glued down the beginning point of my spiral onto the lid, and now I'll glue down the end point of my spiral to the center of my box. So just added a little bit of glue to that very end of the spiral, and then I'll just fold my box over, and then I again will weight it down with a platform for my die cutting machine till it dries. Once dry, I now have my pop-up mechanism all completed. You can see the nice spring action that happens. It is acetate, so it is kind of invisible right now. We'll make it kind of pop up more or be more visible once we start adding all these die-cut embellishments. Again, all of these images are from the We Heard stamp set. I just stamped them in black ink and then colored them with my Copics. I made pairs here like you see with this red balloon because I want to sandwich the two die cuts together onto the acetate, and that way it's colorful on both sides. No matter what angle you're looking at this card, you'll see a colorful balloon. For the triple balloons, I had to color them a little bit differently so that the colors matched up. This is not really necessary. You don't have to be that think that forward, but it is kind of a nice little detail. So now I'm going to start gluing these on. The first thing I'm going to do is just glue some of the die cuts directly onto the lid. This one I'm covering up that tail end of my spiral just a little bit, kind of that point where I glued it and it discolored the cardstock a little bit. I'll also glue down some of these single balloons to the lid as well. Once I finish adhering the second single balloon, I will be done with these die cuts, and I'll now move on to actually adhering my pairs onto the spiral mechanism. So I have this, I'd like to start with my biggest die cuts first, and that are these triple balloons. So I've just grabbed a section of the acetate, put a little bit of glue onto the die cut where the acetate's going to hit it, and then I press it down just till it holds a little bit, and then I fold the lid over to make sure that that die cut's in the right place. It's not interfering with the fold, and it's also not popping out from the lid. So I had to adjust that die cut just a little bit, and once I've checked it again and I know it's in the right spot, I will then grab my glue, add some more glue to the die cut, and then grab its pair and place it right on top. And again, these die cuts are actually not, I didn't do any mirrored stamping here. These are just the same dies, or same image stamped twice to make a pair. And they're pretty symmetrical, so the die cuts line up pretty well, which is pretty awesome. It worked really well for this card and this kind of technique that I'm doing to kind of make sure it's colorful balloons everywhere you look. So now I'm moving on to my second triple balloon little piece. I'm going to again grab a little section of the acetate, again close that lid and check many times, and making sure that when that lid is closed, that those die cuts aren't visible. I want it to be a complete surprise. And once I've got it right in the right spot, then I'll grab that glue again, apply some more glue to the back side of the die cut, and then sandwich that acetate with its pair for that die cut image. And once I finish with my triple balloons, I now can move on to my single balloons. So I'm just going to grab a pair here, again just the same process, put a little bit of glue on the backside of the die cut, then sandwich that acetate section with the other die cut with the matching pair. And I repeat this process for all of these single balloons. So I have 4 single balloon pairs here, so I'm just moving around the spiral, placing them every kind of, or randomly around. I did put 2 little balloons together right there, and then I have these little 3 pairs of party hats that again, then I'm placing them around the spiral and checking every so often. Don't forget to check. You want to make sure that those die cuts are in the right spot. You don't want any of them kind of poking out. And then I'll finish up with my last little party hat here, and that will complete kind of all of my little decorations or embellishments that I've added to that spiral pop-up mechanism. So let's close it. You can see everything's hidden, and then we open it. Boom, we've got this explosion of balloons and party hats. The clear acetate works awesomely. It really kind of hides it and just makes you kind of wonder, wait, how are those popping up? It's just such a really cool and easy pop-up mechanism. So now we're going to move on to really transforming this box into a present, and to do that we're going to make a ribbon. So I cut 2 strips of cardstock here down to, they're 3/4 of an inch wide, and then I made a bow here. I used Waffle Flower's 3D bow die to create this bow, and now I'm going to kind of fold it up. It's really easy to do. As you can see, there's 2 little slits on the end. I'm just going to feed them into each other like that. Then I'll press right down on those 2 slits, and then you have this tail here. You take that tail and you just wrap it around the center of your bow. Once you've wrapped it around, you grab your glue, add a little dab of glue to the tail end of it, and then just hold it and then you have a bow. Isn't that awesome? And that's just going to be the perfect addition to our box. So now that I got the bow done, I'm going to add the ribbon to the sides of the box. So the die actually cuts, the box die cuts like slits inside the box, so I'm going to use that to kind of help me know where to cut this ribbon. So I just kind of fed it in there and then use my pencil to trace on the sides of the box so I know where to cut that ribbon. Then I'll grab my liquid glue here, add a little bit of glue to the back side of that ribbon, and then I will repeat that process for the other side of the box here. After I glue down that second piece of ribbon, I'll then flip my box over, grab a pair of scissors, and trim off any overhang. Then I will flip my box back around, and now I'm going to work on the lid. So the lid does have a little lip, and I want that ribbon to look like it's wrapped around it. So I've got to put a little section on the lip. So I just use my pencil to kind of trace the edge of the lip. Luckily, the previously cut angle worked perfectly. I'm going to repeat that process for the other little edge of the lip there. Now I'm going to add ribbon to the very top. So I'm going to grab a longer piece of cardstock here and then just kind of line it up with my ribbon for the side, and then use my pencil again to kind of trace out the edges, and then I'll grab my scissors and just cut along that pencil line, and then add a little bit of glue to the backside, and then just place it right down on the top of the lid. I'm going to do another section of ribbon so it crisscrosses right at the top here, and then I will move on to erasing my pencil lines. I'll just grab an eraser here and just kind of clean up any of those pencil lines that remain, and then I'll finish with my bow. Just add a little bit of glue to the backside of the bow, just center it and press it down, and that will complete my present. I think the ribbon is just so cute. It adds such a nice detail to this box and really does work perfectly for our birthday themed card. So now I'm going to stamp a sentiment, the rest of my sentiment, onto the front of my card. So I just kind of temporarily placed the present down so I knew where I wanted to position that sentiment. Once I've got that sentiment in the right spot, I just folded my MISTI over, picked it up. Now I'm inking it up with the black ink, and then I'll just stamp it right there in that upper left corner. Now I'm going to move on to this image. I'm going to place this on the front of my card as well. I Copic colored these cute sheep earlier. This image is also from the We Heard stamp set, and I'm just going to figure out the positioning here. This is a pretty big die cut, a little bit too big in its entirety for the front of my card, so I'm using my acetate grid here, kind of lining the die cut and keeping the present nice and center, lining that die cut up where I want it, and once I get everything in the right spot, I'll grab my pencil and trace along the edge so I know where now to trim down this die cut. So I'll now just take this die cut over to my paper trimmer and trim it down. So I went ahead and trimmed it down, and just double checking here, everything looks good. So I now am ready to glue things down. I'm going to grab some liquid glue here again, add it to the back side of my present, just center it down onto the front of my card, and then I will grab that die cut of sheep and again add some liquid glue to the back side of them, and then add them to the lower right corner, and I'm almost done with this card. The last thing I'm going to do is add a couple little party hats to these sheep. Again, just added some liquid glue to the back side of them and then just popped it right on top of their heads, and that will complete the card. And I'll hold the card up to the camera so you can get a good look at all the details, looking at the sheep with their cute little party hats, the gorgeous present with our ribbon and that super fun bow. And then when you open it, what a fun surprise. That spiral pop-up mechanism is so cool. An explosion of balloons and party hats, super fun. And the fact that we did that spiral in acetate makes it very clear and visible. Just, it's such a really cool, I think, and very easy pop-up kind of card. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you want any more information on the products I use, please visit Waffle Flower, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.